Dhalsim is a zoner, that is, a character who wants to control the opponent's space and options at a distance. But in this game, if he gets a knockdown, watch out, because he has really strong and tricky offense as well. Let's talk about your mobility as Dhalsim. So you might look at his walk speed, which is kind of slow, and see that it's, crappy. You might look at his jump and see that it's floaty and doesn't go very far and is very high and think it's also crappy. But actually, he's very mobile. His dash, actually pretty good for once in his life. But on top of that, more importantly, you have things like instant air teleport, which really is a big part of what this character's game is about. Being able to move around, not just for offense, but defensively in that way, is a big part. Not just instant air, but, of course, you can also do it up in the air, which is very nice for him. And it gets to many different spots on screen. Then on top of that, drills are nice. They really let you move around quickly. You can get to spots on screen that the opponent might not expect pretty quickly with that. Vskill as well lets you float. Also move backwards and forward. All sorts of stuff you can do out of that, and you can do it in the air as well. Really give you a lot of different options. And then lastly, slides are actually pretty important for mobility. They're not safe on block, so heads up on that. But if you're just using them to get under a jump, for example, that can be really important too. When it comes to ground tools, two of the most important that you're going to use are stand medium punch and stand medium kick. As you can see, they attack a little bit at different spots on screen, but basically the same range. It just depends on, you want to make sure that you're not going to get counter hit, counter poked as Dhalsim. So if the opponent has some high hitting important button, maybe you want to do low a little bit more. Not actually a low attack, but you want to hit lower to the ground. Also important are Fierce, which does hit low, and Roundhouse, which is a crush counter, pretty useful when it comes to that. Then up close, which you're going to be up close. Stand short, pretty useful. Stand jab, also pretty useful. There are some ranges too where down medium kick as a slide can be pretty important. To talk about the specials, typically Yoga Fire goes horizontally, but in this game, it's arcing. That's Fierce. It's the farther one. Jab is the shorter one. And that really makes it used differently, although EX does go horizontally. And then Yoga Flame. Biggest thing you're going to get out of this is combo options, for which it is really important. It's also important to talk about Dhalsim's anti-air options. And as usual, he has a bunch, and you really have to pick which one is right, or else it's kind of your ass. Crouching medium punch, which is cancelable, and goes pretty far. It attacks basically the range it looks like it does. Back medium punch, it takes a little bit of a step forward. And anti-air is more or less above and in front of him. Stand jab is super fast. 3-frame startup as an anti-air, and very solid hitbox on it too. You can also slide underneath anti-airs. Back Fierce is here, but it's quite slow. It does crush counter, but you really have to call it out. And then anti-air, Yoga Fire, it's hard to use on reaction, but it will come up sometimes. More of a preemptive anti-air. And when you're in the air, you have a number of important buttons as well. Fierce is a very important one. It hits all around him, not behind him, but basically everywhere else, making it very useful. Roundhouse controls a really nice spot. If you're in vskill or something and you expect the opponent to jump, this is a really nice way to cut off the screen. Jab is really nice. As you can see, it attacks, pretty far. And it's also your sniper in this game. Up close, that's medium kick. And then in the air, oh man, you guys, Gale. This is called Yoga Gale, and very important. Not usually when you're up in the air like this, although sometimes. Usually more important when you're a little bit lower, or even lower with instant air Gale, which you can do with half circle back, up toward punch. Oh, like that. And there are all sorts of crazy tricks that you can do out of this thing. Let's go into a little bit more detail on the V skill, which I brought up earlier. It's the float. But another thing to note about it is that if you press medium punch, medium kick, you do that vertical version. Forward plus those two buttons moves you forward, so you can get a little bit more use out of it like that. And then the way that you build V meter with this character is by attacking out of the V skill. As you can see, when I turn white, you can do an attack quite quickly out of it. I'm just missing the timing. There it is. You build a little bit of V meter for yourself. Let's show you the V reversal. There you go. It's a little circular swipe. It looks like it might hit behind him, but unfortunately it doesn't. It's just in front. But that's a really important tool for him because Dhalsim has pretty poor escapes in general. The reversal is the flame carpet. You can see here. It sets the opponent on fire, and while that's happening, they lose that white life. And then if you hit them, it, well, as all white life does, it disappears. That is pretty far, pretty good range on this thing. Most of the screen. It also works if the opponent is jumping. so they're still on fire even if they're in the air. Another way to use this, well, I should say the ways to use this are a couple. One is that you can cancel anything into it, any button, thusly. So that's often used when you want slide. You want to slide out of something, it can combo. It knocks down if it's closer. Very important tool to use. And then, you know, of course, if you have the opponent cornered, you want to try to take off white life, that's one way to use it. Or if you get a stun, and you have this whole stun combo opportunity, might as well set them on fire while you're getting the hit just to milk a little bit more damage out of it. I'll explain what the super is, although it's kind of sucky. Multiple versions of it. Jab, strong, and fierce all have a little bit different angle. Just goes up, comes back down. That's it. Fierce, goes farther. Yeah. But that's not it. There's also the air versions of these. You'll notice that in the air, the trajectory is a little bit different. It goes a little bit slower. You can also do sort of an instant air version of it if you want. And then to give you even more options, you can also charge it. And as you're charging it, if you get hit, the super goes away, but it does do more damage, and it does 10 hits. You know what? Not very useful in random situations. It's no yoga catastrophe. But if you need a chip kill, we have found some setups, but usually the way that you're going to use this is just in combos out of Yoga Flame. So speaking of combos, let's talk a little bit about what your options are. So if you need a fast close punish, stand jab into EX Flame is a good one for you. Back medium kick into medium flame, also a little bit slower, but you know that's an option as well. If you need a hit confirm, you can do down fierce back medium kick into flame. That's nice. Or you can do stand jab, EX Flame. So you have a couple of options there. What about if you find a counter hit? So roundhouse is your crush counter. You can combo that into fierce or into roundhouse. You can combo it also into sweep. If you're closer up, down fierce into medium flame is probably your best bet. And then if you find a stun, which is pretty practical as Dhalsim, maybe best to put out flame, let him soak a little bit, and get something like that going for you. Let's talk about Dhalsim's general game plan. You know, it's a little complicated. I mean, he is one of the more complicated characters to use for sure, but just to sort of encapsulate it, you want to zone, you know, you want to be keeping the opponent out with your anti-airs and with your ground control buttons. But then if you find a knockdown, you know, it's time to go in there with your excellent mix-ups. So you're sort of going back and forth between those two options. The sweet spot to get that zoning is probably about the tip of medium and forward. That's a really strong spot for you. You get good anti-airs. All those are working great. You can also move in very quickly to be close if that's what you'd rather do. You can also jump back reasonably safely. So this is a very strong spot. But actually in this game, there is a range up close where you can be pretty happy about it if you're doing so on your terms. If you're not doing so on your terms, if the opponent's rushing you down, you don't really have very good defensive options. Super is invincible, but if the opponent does some low meaty, it'll just fly right over their head. That kind of sucks. So vreversal becomes an important part of this. You also have to know sort of what your panic buttons are. The best you probably have is jab, maybe short, and you know, even still, that's not that great. Offensive options. What are your mix-ups? So, you know, it's definitely instant air teleport side to side. Which side are you going to end up on is a huge part of this thing. But then he has great frame traps that you can do. You know, this into itself is a great frame trap on block. After a knockdown, you know, you can use Gale to set up pretty tricky stuff for yourself. You also have Sniper with jump jab and with jump medium kick. If you have vtrigger to make yourself safe, you can use this as a nice little low option. Of course, you can use this as a low option as well. So he does have frame traps, side-to-side mix-ups. He has, you know, overhead low mix-ups. He does have all those things. And then what do you avoid as Dhalsim? And this is probably the most important thing to point out for somebody who hasn't played Sim before. Don't overcommit. You have to know when to press a button. You have to know when to busy yourself. Because if you're busy, if you press Fierce, which takes a long time, when the opponent jumped right then, you don't have time to anti-air, and now you're in a really bad position. So you have to know sort of when to press buttons. You have to be able to count your time and count on your time as being an important resource for yourself. The other thing to avoid is being stationary. There are some matchups where Sim might want to be grounded for the most part, but in general, it seems like it's really important to be tricky and mobile and, you know, always doing something. That really seems like a helpful thing for him so far. So why should you play Dhalsim in Street Fighter V? Well, for me, I think he's one of the most creative and fun and interesting and open-ended and also strong characters in the game. But don't fool yourself, he is not easy to pick up, and if you like mastering something difficult like that, he might be for you.